Anyways, here are our two formulas. For the first one, we have our formula for the surface area of a sphere, which is S is equal to 4 pi r squared. Well, because it takes 4 total circles to cover a sphere. Right? This isn't pi r squared just an area of one circle. So it takes 4 circles. So 4 circles create the surface of a sphere. Okay? Transfer that onto your index card if you haven't yet done that. And then the volume of the sphere gets a little bit more complicated. Volume is equal to 4/3 pi r cubed. Okay, so transfer that onto your index card. So notice in both of those equations, the only thing we need is the r.
That was like, no, I'm not going to let my money do it.
What's the surface area?
4 pi r squared.
Well, that's right.
There, it's up there on the board.
Walking up on the bottom that she
Yep.
bought her whole group. It was like...
All right, so for our first example, we're going to find the surface area of the provided sphere. So surface area is equal to 4 times pi times my radius, which in this case is 8 inches, squared. So, calculator work. 4 times pi, guys, quiet please, 8 squared, which is equal to 804 point, if I go to 2 decimal places, 25. Surface area is always units squared. Okay? Again, when I'm putting in my calculator, I'm just putting it in one long string. I'm just typing in 4 pi times 8 squared, and then it pops out the answer for me. If we look at the next example, here we have to work a little bit backwards. So here they're telling me that the surface area is already given as 20.25 pi square centimeters, and we need to solve for the diameter. Okay, well, we know that our formula for surface area is S equals 4 pi r squared. I'm going to plug in 20.25 pi in place of S. Equal it to 4 pi r squared. Because I have a pi on both sides of this equation, I can just cancel them out by dividing them. So cancel, cancel. So now I'm left with 20.25 equals 4r squared. Yep, divide by 4. So 20.25 divided by 4 is 5.0625 equals r squared. Now how do we undo the r squared? Square root both sides. So the square root of that is 2.25 is my radius. But notice the question was, what's the diameter? So we just need to double that. So double 2 1/4. That's me 4 1/2, right? So 4.5, my units are centimeters, would be equal to my diameter. If this pi was not in the original problem, then I would have to divide by 4, which would get me to this number again. But then I would also need to then divide by pi before I could take the square root. Okay? Alright, so let's jump to some volume. So let's go ahead and find the volume of the sphere. Because the line is straight across, that's telling me that that 18.3 is my diameter. which means that my radius is going to be what? 9.15. Good. Okay, so now volume is equal to 4/3 pi times my radius, which is 9.15 to the third power. Now when I type this into my calculator, everyone always gets stuck on the fraction part. The fraction is just the same thing as division. So if I hit 4, and then the divide button, and then 3, and then the multiplication button, and then the pi button, or 3.14, depending if you don't have that, and then 9.15, and then the up arrow, and then 3, that's going to give me my answer. So 4 divide 3 times pi times 9.15 to the third power gets me an answer of 3,208.87 meters cubed for volume. Okay, so you gotta make sure that you can put these things into your calculator correctly. That's just the only part that might trick you up. All right, now let's do a composite shape, meaning that it's multiple shapes put together. What two shapes do we see? I see a cylinder, half a dome, or half a sphere. Wasn't a dome, half a sphere? Isn't that what a dome is? Half a sphere?
No.
So if you had half a dome, then it would be a quarter. All right, so if we think about our formula for surface area of a cylinder and and volume of a cylinder, what variables are in them? Look at your index card. Look at your cylinder line. What variables are in for surface area? So the surface area of a cylinder is what? 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi RH. So 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi RH. The surface area for a sphere is 4 pi r squared, but I'm not doing a whole entire sphere. I'm only doing half of a sphere. Right, so I would divide that by 2. So if I had 4 pi r squareds and I cut it in half, that would leave me with 2 pi r squareds. Connor, not necessary. So now, let's think about the surface area of the cylinder, or all the surfaces on its exterior. I feel like we did something similar to this with a cone on top before. Which surface is in the interior of the cylinder? The top circle of the cylinder. So this part right here represents the bottom and the top circle, because it's 2 circles, 2 pi r squared, but I only have 1 circle, which means I'm going to take away that 2, because I only have 1 circle as a face. This represents the lateral area that's all the way around.
So we get rid of the 2.
Nope, because that represents this part. That's the circumference. Yeah. All right, so now let's do surface area first. So my radius is what? All right, do you need to go to the office? Stop talking. It's rude. So pi times 5.8 squared plus 2 pi times 5.8 times 14. So again, I'm just going to put that in my calculator all in one string. So I'm going to hit pi times 5.8 squared plus 2 pi times 5.8 times 14. So that means my surface area of my cylinder is 615.88. Now let's go over to half the sphere. Still has the same radius. So 2 pi times 5.8 squared. 2 pi times 5.8 squared is 211.37. So to get the total surface area, we're going to add those two numbers together. So 615.88 plus 211.37 gets me a total surface area of 827.25. My units are feet, and then I will square them. Okay, so surface area gets a little bit complicated because you have to think about what surfaces are missing. The good part about the dome, half the sphere, is if you think about surface area of a sphere, if you chop it in half, that doesn't include that bottom of the sphere. Okay, it's only the external parts. All right, now I gotta do volume. Volume's a little bit easier because you don't have to eliminate anything, so I'm not eliminating space. So my volume for a cylinder is pi r squared h. And I'm going to add to it the volume of half a sphere. So 4/3 pi r cubed, and then cut that in half. Bless you. So now just plug everything in. So pi times 5.8 squared times 14 plus 4/3 pi times 5.8 cubed, cut in half. So let's figure out what those numbers get us. So pi times 5.8 squared times 14 is 1,479.56. 4/3 pi times 5.8 to the third power is 817. Divide that by 2. Gets me 408.64. So when I add those together, so 1,479.56 plus 408.64 gets me a total volume of 1,888.2 feet cubed. So there'll be your volume. So volume is a lot easier than surface area because if you're taking total space, you don't really subtract anything from it. Okay? All right, questions with any of that? One other problem that you are going to have to complete. I'm just going to work it through up here on the board so you can just watch. If I told you that your total volume was equal to 64 pi cubic inches, and I wanted to know what the radius was equal to, how would you solve that? So similar to the surface area problem, we would equal 64 pi to what formula? To volume, which is 4/3 pi r cubed. Can we cancel out pi's? Yeah. So I can get rid of those. How would you get rid of the 4/3? You could either divide by 4/3 or even easier, multiply by the reciprocal. Either would work. So when I do 64 times 3 divide 4, I get 48 is equal to r to the third power. Well, to undo a square, we do the square root. How do we undo a cube? We're going to do a cube root. And do you guys remember, I feel like on Tuesday or whatever day it was, we talked about how to do the cube roots on our calculator? Do you remember how to do the cube root on your calculator? If you're on a TI-30, you're looking for this button, which I think is if you hit second and then the up arrow will get you to that. Oops, I'm standing in front of it. So you would have to hit the number 3, the second button, and then the up arrow, which will get you this symbol, and then 48, which gets us some decimal, 3.6. I think your cell phones actually have a cube root button on it. So my radius would be equal to, not 3.6. Okay? All right, so this is what you need to